with allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Start with a roll call vote.
Eric Wardell.
Brandy Pelletier.
Christy Wood.
David Latshaw.
Matt Jazokis.
Ann Pierce.
Jason Henry.
Tim Broderick.
Heidi Duford.
Doreen Wittenberg.
Lauren Ferruccio. Eliza Drolling.
Mike Boland.
Thank you, everybody. Next up is we have a public hearing, which there is a actually memo to look at out there. Anybody has any questions?
I'm digging out the memo, sorry. So this is the memo on, I wrote a page for you with a recommendation. This is the public hearing on open enrollment capacity. For the year, you have a lot of these, so I'll move slowly. So this is the law, RSA 194D, open enrollment, does not require that you establish capacity after a public hearing, but I recommend it, and this is your third time holding one. It's either been in April or May each of the previous years, and this is where the joint board has decided how many students we have space for in the open enrollment program. So I don't believe you saw this prior to sitting here, so I've given you a little bit of detail about where we are financially. Last year, we billed $165,000 plus in tuition under manifest hardship, best interest, and open enrollment. We have collected over $66,000 of that, but more than $98,000 remains unpaid. I continue to mail occasional reminders to those school districts, and they respond more or less the way I expect them to. This year, in about a week, Heidi and I will meet, and we will set tuition rates for each sending district, and under RSA 194D, it's a different number for each district because it's based on a percentage of their audited per pupil cost from last year, from the previous year. So we get one number for Gilmanton and another number for Pittsfield. They're all different. But figure we're going to invoice at least $300,000 this year, with $98,000 plus in outstanding receivables. That means we will be looking at about $400,000 in receivables, ending a year with 20 open enrollment students in the school today. 2 graduate, I think I got that number right, which is wonderful, and we'll have 18 returning. I'm trying to recommend caution and that you keep the numbers controlled so that we're not incurring any costs, right? The idea here is our average class sizes are relatively small, and open enrollment is allowing you to fill seats that would otherwise still exist but be empty in a building that we're already heating, that the lights are already on in. So the idea is not to create more demand for spending and budgeting, but simply to fill some excess capacity. So my recommendation tonight, and it's just where I landed, you're gonna make a decision, is maybe consider 15 new seats next year for 9th and 10th graders coming in the fall, with 18 students returning. Our capacity is 20 right now. If you add 15 more to that capacity for a total of 35, then with 18 returning, we would expect to enroll 17 students if we have that much demand. If we have more than 17, if you landed on that number, and we had more than 17 applications between the 1st and end of May, we have it's in your packet, you've already approved admissions criteria for how we would rank that list and offer those spots. So we're ready to proceed. If you're not comfortable with that number and wanted to make it 10, I anticipated we're not talking right now about not doing this anymore. We're early enough in this process based on what I think I've been hearing from most of you that this is what we're doing. I've got an update later about all of the legislation that's in progress and what's happening at the Supreme Court. But the decision that needs to be made by the board tonight is how many seats are we going to add to the 20 that we currently have in our capacity, if any.
Are you looking for a motion?
You're gonna have, someone's gonna have to make one, you're gonna wanna have a
I make a
discussion. Yeah.
motion to, I'll make the motion. I make a motion to increase the open enrollment capacity for the 25-26 school year for an additional 15 seats to the current 18 that are currently there.
Second.
We have 20 spots.
Currently 20.
Oh, I'm sorry.
20, so
I'd
you
like to
go up to
amend
30.
that
Up to
to 20,
Yeah.
sorry,
Up to 35 total.
to 35 total. So amended.
Discussion? Looks good. Seeing none and hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, all right, passes, thank you very much. Close the public hearing.
I'll move on to the next one.
You do. Next up is 198B2 to accept unexpended anticipated funds. There is in the packet a memo from Heidi. You want to explain that a little bit?
These are grant funds that currently Prospect Mountain has received. This year, I budgeted $100,000, which means we're looking to accept the unanticipated of $32,920.68, so we can spend it.
I make a motion to accept the unanticipated funds of $32,920.68 pursuant to 198:20-B and 198:20-C.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, with that being said, at this point, I will close the public hearing.
Still have one.
Oh, one more?
Oh, this is 126?
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
okay.
open this one.
Still open this one, sorry. Pursuant to to withdraw $126,080 from Prospect High School capital improvement CFR for the purpose of the CIP items approved by the JMA School Board on 6/18/24.
If it's your first year on the board and you're finishing a full year, you've heard this number 5 or 6 times by now because we like to repeat and repeat and document and make sure that we've gotten everything in the written record. So this is based on not this past December, but the previous December's capital plan proposal endorsed by the board. Then in June, we talked about your permission to do the work, planning to take the money from this fund, which is a legal use of the money in this fund. You had us go ahead with the work. Tonight's the night to actually, these are actual numbers. This is what we actually spent before it was all estimates. So tonight's the night to withdraw the money to pay for the work we've had done.
I make a motion to withdraw $126,080 from the Prospect Mountain High School Capital Improvement Fund pursuant to 198:20-C.
Second,
I have a motion and a second.
I have a question.
Okay.
On here, it's indicating these are all done, correct?
Correct.
The item about the slab in front of the building, that's been repaired?
It was replaced, the one directly when you walk in the front door.
What about the rest of those?
We're doing it in pieces each year. We're taking, I don't remember how many squares, 8.
Whatever so in the capital plan for 3 more years, we've placed $15,000 a year to finish that whole project in pieces.
So this was number 2, the second section.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passes. Next up is the agenda review.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second,
Is there anything to be added or subtracted to the agenda?
Just on the agenda, is there any way we can get it earlier? Right, we got it yesterday afternoon, then we had an Alton board meeting, then we had a B&G meeting before today. It's 100 and something pages. can we get earlier so we can read it thoroughly?
Of course. Right, Debbie? Yeah, in a week when we have all 3 meetings, it's a little bit tighter, but,
get it.
you know, we have to post by law 24 hours ahead, but your point's very well taken.
Thank you.
Yeah, we had talked about trying to get things like the Friday before.
I'd appreciate Friday before.
Yeah, so we
It
can
would be
be
ideal.
That would be definitely ideal. Make it so known too. Any other comments, discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, all right. I will accept the motion on approval of the minutes of February 18th, 2025.
So it's actually for March 18th.
Okay, March.
But I make a motion to accept the minutes of March 18th, 2025.
I'll second.
Discussion? So make sure it's the March, not February. Okay, seeing none, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
That has been approved. Okay, next up is our public input. If there's anybody from the public that would like to say anything? Seeing none, I will close public input. Board, school board committee assignments, people are still working on that, so we're gonna hold off on that, and we'll have it squared away for our next meeting.
Sounds good.
But one we do have to have is, so when do we have to have, which one do you have to have?
We have shared services, which was the one I was insisting we needed, and we've already met.
We've already met,
Thank you
okay.
to you for it.
We're good on that. Okay, so next up, shared services committee, update for that.
Does the chair of the shared services committee want to talk about that?
I was
You're
looking
so
at
well
her.
versed in it, Tim. You rehearsed it last night quite well.
Did I do a memo for this
You
one?
did great. Go ahead.
I don't remember. Wrote a lot of memos. So the shared services committee is back, and the 4 members all have copies of the shared services MOU, and I think we spent most of that meeting talking about the SAU consolidation grant and researching options for consolidating SAU without necessarily having to change your underlying district and joint maintenance structure, which you do not have to do, but we have time for that committee to look into all options and talk to the joint board about them. So I think that's sort of the snapshot.
Thank you. Okay, finances in our packet. Heidi, do you have anything you'd like to lay out the finance? How we doing?
We're doing okay. We'll be sending out a memo this week, asking everybody to get in their encumbrances for the rest of the year, so I have a better number next month for you, on what we have available.
April is when I want to start talking about potential excess and deficiency or surplus funds at the end of the year, and April is the month when Heidi tells me it's too soon to talk about that. So I say, look at your expenditure report, divide the bottom line in half, and that might be what we're talking about in a month or so.
Anybody have any questions for Heidi?
I just have one, on building maintenance, the over expenditure, does that have to do with money that we spent for some of those capital improvements? Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
Other questions? Thank you very much for the report. Next up, PMHS Outing Club. And we have a student. We have a student here with us. Just say who you are.
Okay. Hi, my name is Victoria Kauser. I run the outing club here at Prospect Mountain. This is my 4th year doing it, and also my last because I'm a senior. And every summer since I came in as a freshman, we've been going on an overnight hiking trip in the White Mountains for 2 nights and 3 days. And that was funded previously by the COVID stimulus funds for all those extracurricular activities. And we don't have that money anymore, so I'm hoping that you guys will approve the use of funding so that way we can have this trip this summer and for years to come, because I won't be here anymore to help organize. So I want this to be a lasting thing that we can do. it's really fun. I've been on 3 out of the 4 that we've had so far. We usually have around 10 students and 2 chaperones. One of them is Miss Fernald over here, who was gracious enough to come support me tonight as I spoke before you. But it's an educational activity. We're learning about mostly Leave No Trace, a lot of like plant biology, just the inner workings of the AMC trips. It's backpacking. We bring all our own stuff. There's staff at the huts that we sleep in. They make our food, and it's just a really fun, unique time that students get to interact with people that maybe they wouldn't know before. Me coming in as a freshman was really helpful to me because I was so shy, and I've come so far now. But that encouragement from my peers and the seniors that year really made a difference and a lasting impact on me, particularly getting out and experiencing new things. So I'm really grateful for that. And I want to encourage incoming students and the ones we have to keep this going because it's really so important to me. And I want it to make a difference for other people as well. Most of you should have a little flyer that I made. Just a few pictures and just a few things. If you have any questions, I would love to answer them.
What's the cost?
In years past, it's been around $6,000 for 10 students and 2 adults.
It's broken down later in the meeting.
Oh, it
Yeah.
is. Okay.
I knew someone would want to know.
Yeah.
It's an expensive trip, right?
Yes.
Of all the sorts of things that we do, this is costly on a per student basis. So there's a conversation for the board here about, now that ESSER is over, and we haven't had a lot of these, but this group is passionate about this and has been pretty enthusiastic and persistent about how do we do this for the future. And I think, with Vicki, who, we're gonna be sad to see her graduate, but happy at the same time for her in a few months. There's an opportunity here for her to talk with you and the board to start thinking about there are certain events that kind of define the culture of a school. And if this is part of who we are and who we want to be, what does that look like? Do we ask that the club start fundraising in the future and then have some partial financial support or something like that? Or is it something the board wants to carry every year? So for tonight, later I've given you the numbers because we're going to talk about some grant funds and things like that we can encumber. I just wanted you to have the options and a chance to talk to Vicki about it if you want to.
And we do several smaller trips throughout the year. This year we've gone apple picking, ice skating. We're planning on going rock climbing next month, and we always do an overnight winter hiking trip where we carry in our food and we cook and do all of the things, and it's really cold, but it is so much fun. So there are a lot of things that we've been trying to get to do more and get more students involved as well. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, school counseling report.
It's in there. If you have any questions, Linda is here. If you have any questions, she'll answer those.
Do you want to say anything, or?
No, the report's in there. I guess I will say that, last night we had the, college overview for juniors and their parents, and we had 29 students and their parents show, including a couple board members here, so thank you very much for that. And does anybody have any questions for me or anything that's in the report?
All right, thank you for last night. It was informational, that's for sure.
I'd like to highlight, Mr. Chair, that last year, because of an increase in state reimbursement for vocational programs, we were able to keep our budget virtually the same. We budget about $100,000 for vocational program tuition, but increase the number of students able to attend those vocational programs by about 50% from 30, not about, by exactly 50%, from 30 to 45. And Ms. Sheff's department has done a great job. Those seats are all filled. And I think we still have a little more student interest if we could add more access to vocational programs in the future. I think we continue to see growing interest among our kids. It's just great to see students taking advantage of that thing that we asked you to make available, and you did, so thank you, and here are the results.
I'll just say I'm out there is watching this, just so you know, if you have a child that's, junior going to senior or senior year, please reach out to the guidance department. The stuff that was put out yesterday, so you can understand how to do your student loans, even how to find colleges. The search engines are out there for small colleges, or that curtail to you, whatever you might be into hiking, but your major is something else. Just that kind of stuff was really interesting last night. So I encourage the whole guidance, they can give you the information of where to go and look at those things, unless you know it off the top of your head of, what's that resource yesterday? What's the resource that came in yesterday? Those
Granted Advance.
Granted Advance. You go right to their website. It's pretty amazing here.
And they'll be back in the fall to do a financial aid night for students, or for seniors at that point.
So, thank you. It was a good event.
Thank you for your time last night, Linda. I think the only feedback was, and I heard this from the juniors, it was scheduled the day before their SATs. And I don't know if it was just a coincidence, but that's why my child stayed home while the parents attended, was because they had the SATs today. So if there's, for future, a way to, if we have control over that, trying to schedule those seminars, not the night before the SATs would be great. I think you might have more attendance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up is we have the athletic department and James Christie.
Two things today. We'll do a review of the winter season, and then I have an ask of all of you for our hockey co-op. I need some minutes showing that we approved to continue that, so I'll let you know a little bit about that. As far as the winter went, one of our goals is continue to put the three schools together as much as possible, create that community feel. We're doing it with our awards nights, our kickoff nights for all the sports. They're going well. Also have as many games as possible up here. The winter forced our hand in that because of the gym situation in Barnstead, and we managed that, to the best of our abilities over the winter, trying to have those games up here. For example, we had 19 middle school games up here at the high school. If you add up the whole winter, I think there were 9 days where we didn't have an event in the gym, just to give you an idea how busy the winter season is. Another big kind of push for us is making sure we have better fan attendance, and so we've been doing some things with social media, try to drive the community here, but more so even just for our students. And one of the things I'm passionate about is having a culture where people come here and they're almost a little scared to play here, just because it's loud, it's exciting, and I think we had some really great crowds this year, not only in the fall but in the winter. We had some fantastic crowds. And part of my job is corralling and what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, and what's the culture of our gym, and I think we did a good job of setting that. I worked with our student leadership team. We actually created some documents about what's appropriate, what's not. Those are things that we'll be sharing out with students here to help answer that question for them on what's appropriate or not. We had a middle school cheerleading team this year for the first time in maybe ever, at least a very long time. And it was the two schools together. I think we had 25 come out originally. We ended up with about 18 that stuck with it. It was fantastic to see our high school team, probably the best year of spirit or cheerleading that we've had here. They'll be competing next year, which I think is an exciting kind of upgrade to that as a sport here at the school. Wrestling team was fantastic. We had a kid actually make it to the Meet of Champions in our first varsity season. That program continues to thrive both at the middle school and high school level. Kudos to Derek on what he's doing with that. Indoor track, we have 5 kids competing in the state championship up at Oklahoma State. Our ski team under a new coach. We only had 3 athletes, but to give you an idea, that is triple the amount of athletes we had last year. But they all broke their personal best in the state meet this year. It was a great season. I'm working with the coach on how do we drive middle school adoption of the ski team and start to get our numbers back. I was talking to Bruce Duvall today. He was showing me a picture of 27 kids on our ski team here. And so I don't know if we'll ever get back to that, but can we get to 10, 11, 12 and build a real program? And that's ultimately what Courtney and I are trying to figure out, how do we drive it into the middle school. Continuing to navigate busing and officials. Again, this is not an us problem. It's just a reality of the world we're living in. But I think we did a pretty good job. We didn't leave anyone anywhere. We didn't miss anyone, which is kind of step one. But the reality is we show up early to things. We leave late from things. It's just is what it is. We got some buses going dropping kids off here and going 30 minutes to there, or 2 separate buses pick them up. It's a whole thing, but we continue to navigate that. We hosted 2 playoff games here for girls basketball, fantastic crowds at both of those. We had, again, well-attended theme nights, so we're trying to find ways. We did half-court shots to win $100. We had theme nights like Minion Night and USA Night and all these different things. And one thing, again, I'm passionate about is how do we drive other clubs at the school here to these events. So we had pep band almost every Friday night. I wish they could have gone every game. It was fantastic. We also had some people do the national anthem. Grant Ferraro on the electric guitar was phenomenal. He did it 3 or 4 times, and then Nina Hahn sang the national anthem and did a great job as well. We partnered with Revolution United. We did a Revs night. They came out, made the high five line for all the kids. As far as SALT goes, which is our student athlete leadership team, I'm really trying to drive those kids on how do you be a leader not only in our school, but also do some things out in the community. Over the winter, we did a toy drive, and I think we had probably like 6 or 7 big bags that we all hopped on a bus. We went up to Dartmouth. We hand-delivered it to the folks at Chad. We got a tour of the place up there. It was a great day for the kids, and that's something we'll continue to do annually. Last thing here, continued social media presence. The one thing I wanted to point out on this that we started this year, we're partnering with our booster club, is social media days, or our media days. And so, listen, they're great for us. We get to put them out, makes our social media look better. The thing I love about it is this is giving families permanent views of their kid while they were here, in their uniform, cool things that they get to keep forever. They have the option to purchase prints. Obviously, we do our senior banners, but for me, it creates a little bit of the culture we want that we're putting out into the world, but also is giving folks, I think memories that they get to keep forever that are done professionally. So that's something that we'll continue to do. In the fall, we talked a little bit about our academic probation and how we're handling grades at the 3 schools. I provided some of the same numbers here that we did. In the fall, we had 40 students that went on academic probation, 18 made it into the 2nd week, and only 8 went beyond the 2nd week into the 3rd week, which is the point where I'm pulling kids off of buses or out of practice. We did have one kid that kind of persisted, was on it for probably about a total of 6 or 7 weeks, finally realized I really want to play this sport, and was able to actually bring up 3 grades to get to the point of passing and finish the season, probably last 6 or 7 games in good standing. So one of the changes we made this year was giving a little more leeway, I guess for lack of a better term, time that they could figure out their grades. And it definitely seems to be working where most folks, as soon as they get the email, we're getting emails back. Hey, I turned this in, my grade just got updated, but the folks that are reaching that 2-week window, we're staying in close contact with them and their parents, and they traditionally turn around pretty quick. That's at the high school level. Middle school level continues to be cumbersome and difficult. We have multiple people, multiple student, software.
Information
systems that don't talk to each other. And so we're trying to piece that together, what's reasonable for the amount of time that can be spent on this between the 3 people at each of the schools that ultimately have to do this. So in fairness, we have not done a great job at either of the middle schools, and it's something we continue to look at and try to find ways to correct. Any questions on any of that, or the winter season? All right, now the thing I was actually here for. So we have a co-op for girls hockey with Kingswood right now. We were in our renewal cycle, but at the same time, Plymouth High School came to us and said, hey, could we co-op with you and make it a 3-school co-op? And so the athletic directors got together. The reality is we got about 15 kids in Kingswood. 9 of them are in one class. So that class is going to be a junior. And after that, you're only talking 3 or 4. So that one class, when it's gone, would put the whole program at risk of not continuing. To give you an idea, we have 4 kids right now that actively play girls hockey with the Kingswood folks. Plymouth would give us 3 or 4 in this grad class that would add to it, and there's probably another 3 or 4 in the next 2 years after. So really what it does is it allows us to have some tenure and, you know, an opportunity to see this thing persist a little bit longer. So what the ask is I need approval from all of you for us to continue the co-op and to add Plymouth in, and I have to submit those minutes to the NHIA as part of our approval for that co-op. Real quick, the funding's all from Kingswood. The agreement is in here. There is language that at some point they could come to us and discuss a share of some sort of the cost, but the reality is right now, they're covering the cost of the ice, the uniforms. We don't even cover transportation. The kids get themselves to the school to hop on the bus that's provided by Kingswood. And that would continue to be what we do this year. Now I'm ready, sorry.
You got that?
Yeah.
I make a motion to approve the 2026 to 2028 renewal of the girls hockey co-op memo of understanding.
Second?
Any discussion?
I have a question. What about boys hockey? Now, maybe this is a thing and I'm not aware. I don't know any kids that play hockey, but
Yeah,
is that an option?
we have some, so the problem becomes in girls hockey there's one division. So everyone plays in the same division, so you don't have to say, hey, if we add this school, it's gonna put us in Division I versus Division II, which is what they look at in boys hockey, where you have multiple divisions. So let's say Kingswood, they would have to say, are we willing to take the enrollment of Prospect at 400 to give us 4 kids, but that puts us from Division II into Division I, is it worth it or not?
Okay.
And that current answer is no for them because they have the numbers.
Okay.
So we would have to find a school that really needs the kids, and either it wouldn't change our division or they'd be okay with it because they need the kids to have the program persist.
Are we actively looking at that as an option? Like, what about Plymouth?
Not currently.
Plymouth
I mean, we
already
could.
partners with
Yeah.
Proctor.
Yeah, so our most logical co-op partner is Kingswood.
It is.
Right, it is, and it's working great for girls ice hockey. Not to wish this on the Governor Wentworth district, but what would have to happen is they would have to lose numbers and not have enough boys hockey players to sustain a team. And then they would potentially initiate that conversation. But it would result in moving up to a more competitive division, which could be very challenging for especially a team like that, right, glommed together by 2 smaller schools that don't have a lot of players, or petitioning, which can be almost impossible
So
to petition to move down.
when you talk about moving up divisions, is that even if they had 1 student from Prospect to join
Yes.
the team?
Because it
Okay.
takes your.
I was like,
your
maybe we
enrollment-
can, is there a partnership, we're giving you 4 really good girl hockey players so that you can
Superstructure.
play?
It's
I didn't
just
know if
easier
it
in girls
was a
hockey
numbers
'cause
game.
There's only 1 division, so there's nowhere to go.
That
so-
makes sense, so
Yeah.
as soon as you have a kiddo who is in a bigger school, regardless, it's changing your division.
And we started getting this
Enrollment
question
crosses over
Right
to
away.
freshman.
We talked
the
about
day after you entered into the girls' co-op. Our phone started ringing at the SAU, right?
No, I
Every
think it's a-
family that has a boy who plays hockey wants to know, is this next?
It's a great question.
And our answer has been, we just explain all of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other closest one is Laconia, and they're already paired up with Winnisquam and Inner Lakes, so.
Right.
Because Co-Brown's paired up too, I think, with.
I think most of them are.
Yeah.
All set at this point.
Alright.
The only option would be joining like a D1 school, because then you're not bumping.
Right.
But that's-
Ice hockey is already kind of big schools and co-ops. And, yeah, it's challenging.
late
Now,
to the
there-
game
I mean,
on co-op.
there is a path forward, I just described it, it's just,
Somebody wants to do it.
yeah, the other school would have to want to do it. Really, that's the first step, and that's a big decision. Well,
And their
or we would
numbers-
have to be
their
bigger and
numbers
have
are
more
solid.
players. Yes, yes.
The Kingswood boys team's numbers are solid. They lost in the state championship this year, so they have a pretty good feeder program coming up, so that would be difficult to get them to shift.
You know, they have a youth program right there in their backyard, right, so they've got a pipeline.
Any other further questions? Seeing none, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
None, okay, that passes, thank you very much. Anything else,
Thank you for a great
James?
report.
Thanks, James.
Thank you. Moving on to Principal Latchow's report, in our packet, and review.
When I get the chance, I shared a lot of really positive, upbeat news. I mean, we have kids in front of arenas. We have kids going to Hollywood, doing commercials. We have just tons and tons of art awards and FBLA awards. So if you really want to get a feel for the school, definitely take some time and look through the good news stuff that's celebrated with kids during the school day. That's the obvious one. The other thing I wanted to point out is Ms. Vanderlyn. She was willing to share a really unique approach she does that she's found a lot of success with. She's among the best in the school with getting kids to turn in work, which is an issue in any high school anywhere you go. And so we spent some time and said, Ms. Vanderlyn, what do you do? And she was kind enough to give a very specific answer. And you can read through it, but it really amounts to she does a little extra. And she really, really cares. And so we put that in there because we're constantly, instead of trying to harp on struggles, we really want to make a concerted effort to point out the positives. And so this is a way to shine a spotlight on a teacher that's really going above and beyond and has found a lot of success with that. So I wanted to give her a specific shout out in that regard. The two other pieces, as I did on day one this past summer, where I defined every major thing that's needed to run the school and assigned a point person administrator, I also do that on a much smaller scale with some of the big activities, particularly that come up at this point in the year. And so I created this and shared it with all the staff so they can see, hey, I want to be a part of the cookout or awards or prom. They know the administrator to go to liaise with that person. It's just a simple organizational trick so people know who to work with if they want to be a part of some of this special stuff that really starts to blow up, as we know, this time of year in schools. And then the last update, which is really an update that is saying in the next couple months we hope to give you a final update. But really, Matt and I have been working together in concert with the rest of the high school administration, in concert with the department heads, to really try to reel in our extremely unique GPA scale, which is currently 0 to 6.3. As we know, when you go to like UNH and Harvard, New England College, Keene, Plymouth, the list goes on, they have a 4.0 scale. So right now our kids are, the kids that are applying to college, they're applying to a college with a 4.0 scale and they have something not on a 4.0 scale. So as part of the embedded honors push, we're working right now with the leadership in the school to get us in line with what the colleges and universities do around us. And we hope in the next month, a month after that, to give some finality with that process. But to the brass tacks of it is, it's to get us in a slowly rolled out approach, starting with the incoming freshmen, and then moving on the next year, the sophomores, and slowly rolling out to just get us in line with, frankly, what the kids will come across if they go into any other kind of secondary education. That's the summary version of the report. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of the principal? Seeing none, thank you very much.
It's very good.
Next up, we have a buildings and grounds report in here for Jim Leclerc. There was a meeting before this meeting too for buildings and grounds, and Eric's the chair. Is there anything you want to add from the buildings and ground meeting? Talk about fields. Any questions on this? Seeing none.
I do, there is, right after Mr. Leclerc's memo on some of the things that have been going on, and by the way, if you haven't driven in here after dark in the last month, do. It's like midday. It's beautiful. It's a welcome change from a few years ago. But attached right behind that one page is the current draft, almost, of our capital plan, which earlier in the year I talked about really minimizing our requests just because of some funding uncertainties. Tonight, in my report and later on, I'm gonna suggest that you have some funding possibilities. So one of the things we did tonight with Buildings and Grounds was talked about moving some of these things into requests that tonight are only tentative, no action. We need to wait and see if we actually have money available, which is going to take us probably until June to be sure. But in order for us to put you in a position to encumber funds, we have to know what our priorities are. We have to conduct procurement, or your votes don't do us any good in June. So that's all there. And there's the one thing missing that we talked about on the cover sheet is next to athletics. It reads 0, which was true yesterday, but after last night, we threw $15,000 in there as a working number, and we're gonna try to see if Jim Leclerc can work with some of our vendors and get some help from Eric to start a real spring and fall aerating over, top dressing and overseeding program to start to try to improve some of these fields that have just been a constant challenge on this campus since the day the place opened. But we gotta try something.
Any other questions, concerns? Seeing none, on. All right, and Wyatt, you're up for student rep.
All right. I only have a few things. I feel like it was, I don't want to say a slow month, but I don't know really what happened. On the spring sports side, all the spring sports are starting to fire up right now. And if you weren't able to catch any of the winter sports, I heavily encourage you to go look at the spring sports. I mean, baseball, a super young team with like an insane amount of potential. Softball, still already crushing it this year. They won their game yesterday. Blowout, in my opinion. Boys and girls tennis, both really strong programs. The girls have a win due pretty soon, and the boys are on a 3-game win streak.
We're hoping. We have practice again tonight.
I have faith in you guys. So that's kind of like the athletic side of things. I really, really encourage you guys to try to get out and catch a match or a game or whatever it may be. In terms of events and stuff, the spring tends to be very busy for National Honor Society as a lot of kids get their projects kind of wrapped up and actually executed. A couple ones to note will be next Wednesday, a group of students are going to be going up to Freedom, New Hampshire to kind of working alongside a conservation group for the day and kind of seeing and understanding what they do to preserve, you know, the forest up in that area. Middle of May, there's going to be a like 8v8 style soccer tournament at the school. That's going to be in partnership with Revs to hopefully raise some funds for, I believe it's all kids play. Give me a rough top of my head. Moving on, the Europe trips are coming up again. Not necessarily Europe, but Greece and Italy and then Costa Rica. And I think those are really important because a lot of high schools and a lot of schools will have the opportunity to be represented, you know, at the aquarium like we are tomorrow, or at, I can't think of another example, but you know, 2 towns over at an event. This is amazing because they're going, you know, to another country and representing, you know, our country, our state, and our school, and I think it's a really unique experience, and I think the students and the staff members who run that do a great job at it.
I'll just add, my daughter's the 3rd time she's going, and Mr. Long is to just thank him for all his work and effort to doing this over the years. It's a lot, but I feel it's been very beneficial, and it's a really good program, and just I'm glad he's stuck with it, and I'm glad he's still staying with us too and continuing this. It's great. It's been really good. Thank you.
No other news, Wyatt? On a personal note?
Any college news?
Any college news that you want to share with us?
I committed to Clemson.
Woo!
That's all. Conveniently gonna leave that out. Huh?
No big deal. Vicky, can I put you on the spot real quick? Absolutely. Sure.
We'd love to hear other news.
College? You go. Yeah, I like college.
I'm going to Colorado.
Woo!
A lot of people finalizing their college decisions right now, but there's people looking to go all over the U.S., not just in state, which we had a lot of last year, but a lot of us are branching out quite further this year. So that's really exciting, I think.
Again, Prospect representing everywhere, not
Yeah.
just here.
That's awesome.
I think that's impressive. It speaks to the guidance department's efforts as well.
Accepted to a college that has a 10% acceptance.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's awesome. Yeah, right.
Next up to the SAU Central Office, we have a technology report inside of our packet. Does anybody have any questions, or do you have anything you want to relay back there? Mr. Dumont?
You guys have questions, only one thing I've noticed that the state as a whole has seen a big uptick in like phishing attacks, and they're often coming from districts, and sometimes, like Linda had someone that is on her contact list send an email, and it was really, someone had a compromised account, but the staff has been excellent, and we've been really vigilant, and the staff has a good knowledge of how to identify these and forward them right away, and we purge them, and it's just, I'm really proud of how far we've come in this district as a whole with that. Other than that, unless anyone has questions.
If anybody saw the news, Stratford County, they had a phishing expedition, somebody clicked on it, and it took all their stuff and ransomed their.
So that's part of the nature of our setup. We're all Chrome-based, and Chrome has never had ransomware or viruses ever. It's the way the OS is, formatted. It's a read-only OS. So when you're working in Chrome, nothing can be written to that. There's a secondary OS that gets updates, and every time you restart it, it goes up. So there's never been ransomware or virus in the history of Chrome OS, which is primarily why we operate with that. And the ease of management with Google Admin Console. A lot of those ransomware attacks that happen, government facilities or other districts, are very predominantly Windows-based.
It crippled the county. All
Yes.
their emails were down, and they had a very difficult time.
Matt's lot in life, which he seems to accept pretty well, is for students and staff to mostly be annoyed with him all the time, because he's the guy who tells people what we're not allowed to use and what they can't do on their computers, but this is why. It's to protect us from all these sorts of things.
Yeah. Awesome.
Thank you. Next up, Assistant Superintendent, Matt.
In your board packet, you have the data dashboard for our Q2. As Brandy had mentioned, today was the SAT day for our juniors. So the students will be getting their scores probably late May, early June, and then we'll be getting some preliminary scores before the end of the school year. And then we'll be reporting out those probably in the fall. Kudos to Principal Ladshaw in school counseling department, along with our math and our math and ELA teachers. This year was the first year that we did some SAT prep work with them. So they did some team teaching in terms of going through and just sort of prepping them about what test questions might look like and that process, just as a way, because it's a different type of test that they're used to taking than they're used to taking. So the reports were that the kids felt it was worthwhile. So hopefully that helped them be better prepared for what was going on today. The SAS science will be taking place in the near, not too distant future. We have some STAR assessment data. Again, we'll be collecting data. This will be our second full year, so that we can start to take a look at, track our 9th grade from last year to 10th grade this year. So we'll be able to have some of that data moving forward. We'll be doing the spring sometime in May. The graduation data continues to come in. Certainly this is the 23-24 year. And you can see we're pretty constant for the most part. And we'll continue to track that, usually about a year behind, because the state doesn't send that stuff out. Class of 25, we have updated for post-secondary plans by their pathways, and again, we continue to do this starting their freshman year. The counseling department works with them all the way up through. The goal will be at some point to be able to start offering some classes when we know that there are a lot of kids heading into specific areas. For example, if law is one of those areas, we should be able to have some electives here so that they can continue to work towards whatever their goals are afterwards. The next few pages are just the breakdown of our core value score. I gave you some trend lines as to what was going on. Again, we continue to look at our core values as those things we want all of our kids to leave here with. And then lastly, you'll see some discipline data from Q2 comparing to last year's Q2. Again, our approach, like it is at our elementary schools, is around a restorative approach and really kind of working with the kids to teach them about what it is that we're expecting from them, and certainly work with them so that it isn't just punitive all the time. Certainly there are times when it has to be punitive based off of behaviors, but when that is, we're looking for different ways of connecting kids. So I think kudos to Dennis and Kristen for their work, not only with our students, but also our teachers.
It's amazing on those numbers.
That's a significant drop.
That is just amazing.
A lot of it is relationship building. That's, they're really working hard to build those relationships, especially with those kids that are frequent flyers, and trying to get them to understand what it is, and working hard with them. There's a few kids where I think Dave has done a great job, where he's got a journal of about 25 pages that he shares with the parent. So the parent's aware of the conversations that are taking place, not only with him, but with Dennis and Kristen and school counseling as well. So again, looking at different ways to try to reshape their behaviors. And then a look at the attendance rate and our truancy rates for quarter 2, which has been another highlight this year that we're really kind of tracking and working closely with not only the SRO, but our parents to kind of curb that a little bit.
Any questions?
I just have one question on the discipline report. I mean, it's remarkable, the change. But has there been any change in how things are reported? No?
The teachers have the same reporting system that we've used. And I think what this is part of our Dean of Students working with kids early on in the school year in the classrooms at that sort of tier 1 piece of it. Also, I think when you look at in years past, things have been pretty punitive, and we've done a lot of work over the last couple years to sort of update our handbook. When I first got here 3 years ago, if you were caught vaping, it was a 10-day in-school suspension, which really didn't make much sense. So we're looking at holding kids accountable, but also looking at it from a common sense view. So,
yep. And for example, you'll see we might have 5 to 10 teachers in the span of a week reach out to administration and say, hey, I'm having some struggles, and we'll go set up shop in that classroom and work directly with the teacher in real time to address that. And if you take that simple little example and apply that across multiple fronts, it starts to pay dividends. Even something as simple as, I'm sure Victoria Wyatt can attest to, kids always joke that Mr. Latcher always pops out at anywhere. And so I'm just constantly out in the hallways. I might spend a couple hours and just work remotely right in the hallways and just constantly being a presence. So when you take all these little examples and apply them in mass, you can start to get really noticeable, measurable results.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is superintendent's report. Turn over to you. There's quite a few things here.
There are 4 things, I think. The SEU merger grants, we've talked about a few times with the Shared Services Committee last night in Alton, tomorrow night in Barnstead. I'll ask for action by the Barnstead board, same action that the Alton board already took. Here at the high school, there is no grant because the high school kids are counted in the Alton total enrollment and the Barnstead total enrollment that are used to calculate the amounts of these grants. So it's a grant to the Alton School District and a grant to the Barnstead School District, and then how or if you share any of that money at the high school is up to the joint board. Which brings me back to the capital plan and Vicky and the outing club and some of the other things we've talked about. On the very back page of that memo, my superintendent's report, I've got a breakdown here of how you might, and this would happen in June, it doesn't happen tonight, choose to fund capital items for this summer. So the $75,000 that was on that cover page, until I added 15 for fields, could come from these grant funds potentially. These are unrestricted funds. On the operating side of things, because the grants, although it's not required, the funds are unrestricted, but because the intention of the merger grant is to streamline operations, you could do hit some operating expenses like aligning our Frontline. Frontline is software we use in all three systems, in both districts and all three schools, but we don't use it for exactly the same things or in exactly the same ways. So we could just have the company configure that to be consistent across all our schools for certainly not more than $15,000, which is the number I've used here. We've conducted procurement to change the student information systems at the elementary schools. Alton saw that in its packet last night. Barnstead will see that in its packet tomorrow. If we move forward with that, we could fund that transition using some of this money. And then if you want to have a conversation now about the outing club trip, if that's something you want to foot the bill for this year, even if you have other ideas about maybe a cost split or something in the future, I think that is a $7,000 to $12,000 trip, depending on whether we send one van load of students or two. I think that's kind of how it scales. So that's expensive. Among, again, the sorts of overnights that we do from here within the state, you know, as opposed to the international trips and the music trips to, you know, Orlando and stuff like that. But for the things we do around here, this is on the more expensive side. I don't know if it's something the board will want to budget for going forward, but the question tonight would be, well, not for action tonight, except for them to be able to start planning. When we do encumbrances at the end of the year, is it something the board either wants to cover or consider helping with, and outline the terms of that so that the outing club knows how to proceed. So that's sort of a summary at the bottom. I've shown you how under the JMA, you would divide the capital costs 50-50. And then this is an estimate. Heidi actually carries this out to the 2 decimal places, to the 100th. But it's roughly 48 to 52% going into next year. So the operating costs are split based on that percentage, which is based on student enrollment in the system, or at the high school, sorry, which makes the numbers a little bit different, but the grant amounts are also a little bit different. And then the bottom line numbers are what would be left, which we'll talk about or have talked about in the other 2 meetings about what the Alton board can do with some of that money, where we talked about some capital items last night and what the Barnstead board might do. And I know you've got a lot of capital happening in Barnstead where we're building a whole darn building. And we can talk about that tomorrow night. So this doesn't have to be what you do, but I want to kind of lay out the system. This is how it can work. We don't know if what the Department of Ed has told me they think they're going to do is what they'll actually do. And that's true of any agency, not just our State Department of Education, but it is especially true of our State Department of Education, that just because they told me this is what we think we'll do, we'll really know when we receive the checks. So after this week, I anticipate the Barnstead board's action tomorrow. We'll probably be submitting for these grants. And it does give us an opportunity to do some end of year things, sort of, you know, with some funds that we didn't 6 months ago anticipate having available in June.
So is there a way, I know you're not looking for an action item, or what can we do to support the outing club so that they can start
I think they do need direction. So I do think that's an action, right? What's the board interested in doing, if anything, on that topic?
So I'd like to make a motion that, to approve the, I would like to make a motion, that contingent on funding, that we support the outdoor club's annual AMC overnight trip, for up to $12,000.
Second.
Discussion?
I would just say, I think we should support it. I think moving forward, knowing that we don't necessarily have like set funding for it, probably look at some sort of expectation of some fundraising to offset some of that where it is so costly.
Yeah.
I agree with funding it now, and then the partnership of, can we fund some and can they raise some?
Right.
Yeah, I think that's
And I think
skin in the game.
that could support like their overall goal too of like being outdoors too, right? Like, is there a way to do some sort of fundraising kind of related to those activities?
Yep, I think that's reasonable.
Can we, for future, I know there are times where we've voted to support and help finance different trips. and I know I have record of each and every one somewhere, but can we get like a bullet item list of
What we supported.
these extracurriculars? I mean, I know that they are educational purposes and we want to support all of them, but at the end of the day, we do have a budget that we have to keep in mind. So I was just looking for something in the future, if we could have it put in front of us, like what are we committed to, or some, like right now I know band is already fundraising to try to raise money for Disney. So if we're paying this for this program, I want it to be as like.
Right, I think it would be nice to bookend on that. I think it would be nice to just see who we are supporting, who we've supported, so that we make sure that we're not just.
I want to be transparent and have it as equitable
Yeah.
as possible.
Yeah, 'cause
Right.
we gave money towards the
Across
band.
right, so that we're supporting all.
But then we could also look at like a percentage, right? So like if the cost is whatever, are we asking each group to come up with a similar percentage? And so the cost could be different because something could be more expensive, but to your point, like an equitable approach, because it seems like whoever comes and asks, like, we want to support, but then does that mean the group that didn't ask doesn't get any support?
Yeah, I think these are great questions, and we can, right? That's not hard for us to do. It's written down under future agenda items here, and Heidi's nodding. You did recently, and I don't remember if they came in person or came with a memo or not, but Tom and Kurt outlined a plan for what the music department does, right? And you did commit some funding, right, for transportation for coach buses for them. I think this year. They'll probably be doing that fairly soon. Yeah, they already did it. Heidi says they already went. Oh, we already funded it. I imagine they'll be going soon. You've got this now. You always support the activities of the robotics club that's been extremely successful, but it's a great question, and we can provide that detail for sure.
And I think we can talk about either as a group or an ad hoc committee, see what would look like, what percentage you might want to do.
Groups all have like a clear understanding, right? Like before they even come up with something, if they know we're gonna have to come up with X percentage, then that can kind of determine what they want to plan to.
I think we can do, like I said, an ad hoc committee from both towns to kind of come up with that and then present to the board if that's something people would be interested in.
I think it would be good. I think transparency and.
We put that on for next agenda, to talk about an ad hoc committee for talking about trips, those nature and what we want to fund and percentages. We'll get some people on there and figure that out, and then.
It may not even be trips, but like the
extracurricular.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. All encompassing of the extras.
Yeah.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Great, it passes.
Moving on to my report, item number 2 regarding federal title programs and our grant allocations for next year. We have been getting a lot of questions about federal grants for education for next year, and this isn't probably going to help because the state has not yet received its allocations from the Fed yet for next year. That means we have not yet received our federal grant allocations for next year. It's late but not outrageous that we don't have them yet, so I wouldn't say that it quite raises any alarms yet that we don't know. We do have a change, and I think in your packet I included the letter that we received from Jess Lascarbo at the Department of Education. Years ago, there were only 2 LEAs here receiving federal grants, the Alton School District and the Barnstead School District, and at some point after the boards entered into the joint maintenance agreement, somebody convinced the State Department of Education to give us 3 different grant allocations, one for the high school and one for each elementary school, and the Fed, in an audit of our State Department of Education, caught that recently and informed them that a joint maintenance agreement is not an LEA and shouldn't be receiving its own grants. So this already happened in special education a couple of years ago, so we've actually, Heidi is used to it, I'm used to it, our special ed administrators are used to it. But now it's going to extend to our title programs, which Matt administers. So most of the changes here are just among the three of us sitting at this table. It's not a big deal, it's something we can manage. It does mean, though, that the high school doesn't get its own separate grant allocations. So we're responsible for figuring out how to move the money to make sure it benefits students at all three schools, which doesn't seem like the end of the world, given what we're already doing. That's item number 2 for me. Jason and Christy, I have what may be the final draft of that, remember this? Yeah, of course you do. Of the K-12 agreement. If we can schedule a time with Matt Upton next week, we can get this thing done. Okay. That would be terrific. It does, for the rest of the board, it does what we intended for it to do. It allows K-12 education to launch the online school while indemnifying this board against any financial risk for 3 years. And if tuition money isn't flowing within that period of time, K-12 packs up and goes away, and you never owe them any money. So it does do that, and they are eager to start. So they would like this thing wrapped up, as I'm sure we all would. I certainly would.
Could you set it?
I'm going to hand it to you. It's right there.
All right. So there's some time to read it.
On the topic of money flowing and open enrollment, there are 2 House bills that have advanced from the full House to the Senate. House 771 clarifies the language in the existing RSA only to make it more clear that it does what we're already doing with it and what the Department of Education and the State Board already advised us it's supposed to do. But some of the language was a little weird. I've always said it was not very well written law. I plan to attend, hope to attend, I wrote, but I think I'm planning to now, the Senate Finance Committee hearing this Thursday afternoon on that bill. I see that one moving relatively easily, but that's a dangerous prediction to make. House 741, which would expand open enrollment to every district in the state, would actually mean that every school board would have to do what you did earlier this evening every year and determine whether or not it had any capacity. And if the board decided, no, we don't have any capacity, then they wouldn't accept any students. And if they said, yeah, we have 5 or 10 or 15 like you did tonight, up to 35, they could do that. I'm not going to predict the future of this bill. I testified both in the House where it passed, and I was also heard by Senate Education last week. They haven't made their recommendation on the bill yet. When that happens, I hope to be there as well. You know, we'll see what happens with that one. And then finally, there is a case before the State Supreme Court, Pittsfield School Board versus the State Board of Education. If anyone is interested in reading the Pittsfield School Board's arguments, they're full filing. I think I have 7 copies over here. I made the assumption that not everybody would want one to take home and read. It's about 50 pages. But if you want one, you can grab one. And if we don't have enough, we can certainly make more. The State Board of Education and the parent involved in the case have another few weeks to submit their arguments, which I think means now we're looking at June, July, August for a potential court decision on that case. Other activity regarding our efforts to create tuition revenue and increase enrollment. We will hold the annual 8th grade open house this year. It's Thursday, May 7th, I believe. I get that right, Linda? It's a Thursday, and it's the beginning of May. It's the 8th. Maybe it's the 8th, but it's a Thursday, and it's the first week in May. And last year we started advertising that quietly, but a little bit, to families of 8th grade students who don't reside in Alton and Barnstead, along with all of our kids who live here. We will do that again this year, and then part of that means that we hold a couple of question and answer sessions on open enrollment, and we make the applications available that night, because the first application period is May 1st through May 31st for fall admissions. Later this week, Heidi and I mentioned this in passing earlier, we'll meet to set tuition rates. The data we need to do that doesn't come out every year until January, so now we have it. This is around the time we did it last year, and I'll be communicating with the superintendents of those other school districts shortly after that. And then finally, in light of our Shared Services Committee getting back together and its first meeting, and the availability of these consolidation grants that the legislature created last year, I sent an email to the chair and vice chair of the Pittsfield School Board, just pointing out to them that there's free unrestricted grant funding available from the state if they were interested in asking a couple of other school districts that are already doing this, if they could attend some meetings and talk about just the possibility of SAU consolidation. A few days later, the chair sent me a very polite email stating that they are not interested. Just wanted to put that on the record. That's my report.
Any questions of the superintendent? See none, moving on. Action items. We did the girls hockey co-op. So out-of-state FBLA national conference.
I make a motion to support the FBLA conference, and fund in the amount of up to $5,000.
Second?
So I think this brings up the same thing that we were talking about before with, you know, we've often, right, supported FBLA, and they are fantastic. It was in part of Dave's Good News assembly / presentation. Certainly a strong community and activity, whatever you want to call it, here at the high school. Very active. They're receiving a gold award this year.
They have received, are receiving multiple awards.
Okay.
They're wildly successful. And Mrs. Cove, who's doing a great job with the FBLA, there's several of our students who essentially have met the criteria to do the national version of the FBLA program, which is a big deal. You know, it's the highest level for that program. So it's a big deal. It's no small feat. You know, some schools might go years without ever having a single student do that, and a lot of these schools are a lot bigger. So it's a testament to the strength of the program, for sure, and the great work Ms. Cove has done.
Also, I do want to point out that this, they are asking, it was just below $5,000, I just rounded up. But their fundraising is going to be close to $15,000. So they are making efforts.
I mean, I like the idea of getting more information about who and how we're supporting certain organizations. But it's interesting, some of it is in the budget and some is, in like robotics, is in several places in the budget. So, I mean.
Yes, and that club also fundraises an additional $40,000 or $50,000 a year in addition to that.
My point is,
yeah.
But some of it's in the budget, some not.
in the budget and some.
It would be good to clean it up and have a clear understanding of who, what's funded, what group.
Yeah, because it feels like once you have that information, then exactly you make the budget more reflective of what the actual needs are.
Right.
So then if you get requests, it's like, well, this amount has been budgeted.
And then the advisor
and
of the
this-
group
yeah.
would know what the amount is, so if they need to do fundraising.
Right,
Right.
yeah.
I agree.
Sorry, Heidi.
It's a great thing for us to pull together for you. It's a really good thing to have organized. Last year in Barnstead, we did something with field trips, right, co-curricular
Yeah.
trips, and we'll do it in Alton. We talked about it last night. We'll do it for next year, similar project. This is similar in a way, right, at the high school level. These activities, they're not field trips, but it feels like a similar thing to me, where having a plan makes it easier to defend a budget to a budget committee, easier to talk about talk to the public about our values, what the board's values are, and what we're trying to promote among kids in the school. I think it's well worth our time to give you this information.
Also encourage some of the students to do the fundraising if they know, they have this amount of money, but, yeah.
Any other comments? Comments, concerns, questions? Seeing none, hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstentions? Okay, that passes. Next up on action items is commencement and last day of school. I turn that over to you.
I actually wrote a memo on this, which is mostly just so it will be sitting in the meeting minutes in the future if anyone ever has to do a study and look back at this kind of thing. But I have determined it will not be necessary to schedule any additional days in June to make up for time missed due to cancellations or delays this year, so I recommend that the last day of school be as listed on the school calendar, Wednesday, June 18th. That'll be a half day. And also please note that the class of 2025 commencement ceremony will take place the evening of Friday, June 13th, as scheduled on the school calendar, with a rain date the following day.
Are we planning that in the auditorium? Or
We
outside?
plan to be outdoors,
Yep.
and Wyatt didn't mention it. He submitted a request in case it needed to come to the board, but it didn't have to come to the board. We were forced indoors last year,
Right.
but I have tried really hard with a succession of principals to have one commencement plan that doesn't change every year, so that there's a tradition, and this is what we do, and it's outdoors. So we were indoors because we were forced to be indoors. Wyatt's request, which I'll just mention so everyone knows that he and the class officers, I assume it was, asked this question, but the answer was so easy, just didn't have to come here, was can we provide space, and also I think part of this is reach out to past employees and retirees, people who have ever worked here and supported our kids, and give them a section of seating if they want to use it during commencement. It's something we actually used to do at my previous district. To me, it's a no-brainer that we should be doing that. I've also noticed that there's a tradition here, there has been a tradition here of kids handing flowers to relatives who have worked for our schools, right? Parents, grandparents, current and former employees. It can take a long time because some of them have to walk like way up to the back and up on the hill. So if we could get people to a seating section, it could make that part of the whole ceremony go a little faster too. Which would be cool. So yes, outdoors is the answer unless it's really, really raining.
So there's no action needed on that
Nothing
because it
changed.
is as is, no
You can
changes?
vote to establish the last day of school, otherwise I'm gonna tell everybody that's when it is. He's got a hand
We're
up
not
here.
changing it, so it's, there's no action needed.
No.
Could I, just a point on commencement, the NHIA calendar is off by a week this year. So Saturday, which would be the rain day, could potentially be a championship game for softball, baseball, some other sports, which could be very disruptive to athletes.
Considerations like that are how we end up indoors on Friday instead of outside on Saturday, right? So if we have rain on Friday night and Saturday looks better, but let's say we have a team going to a championship game on Saturday, that's exactly how we would end up indoors. So we will figure it out.
Thank you, though. Okay. So calendar's done. Up next is the personnel,
Did we do this
No,
one?
it
which one
didn't,
is?
didn't take a motion on that. We haven't approved the motion.
calendar.
225.
So this calendar,
Remember that, yep, calendar.
so this calendar is neither option 1 or option 2 that you saw 2 months ago. This calendar begins with the first day of school for all students on the Tuesday following Labor Day, which I think has been this board's preference. And it ends with an early release on the 18th of June. If we needed to schedule additional snow days, which is highly unlikely, they would be the following week, the 22nd through 26th. Again, highly unlikely. Commencement would be scheduled now, next year, for Friday evening, the 12th of June.
Make a motion to approve the final version of the 2025-2026 PMHS school calendar.
Second.
Further discussions? Seeing none, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Right. All right, did that. Okay, next up is personnel report.
And do we need to table personnel for now, or do you want to do the nominations? Where are we at with that?
So you have two different memos. You have the faculty renomination memo from me. This is required every year for certified staff. They are nominated by superintendents and then appointed by school boards. So that's one memo. And then you have the regular monthly personnel report, which has resignations of certified teachers to be accepted. And then we have 3 newly nominated teachers, so they're on a different report than the renominations because they would be new coming into the school.
Accept the nominations.
I make a motion to accept the PMHS faculty renominations as listed for the 25-26 school year.
Second.
Questions, concerns? Seeing none, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
You gotta do each section.
And then I make a motion to accept the professional staff nominations for the outgoing teachers as listed. Do I need to name them?
Yeah, so you've got a retirement and 2 resignations, and then you have 3 new staff nominated. You're gonna handle them separately?
I was just gonna do the resignation and then the 2 resignations and then retirement first.
All right, second.
Any questions, concerns? If there are, we do it non-public.
You can go to non-public.
Seeing none, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
With, congratulations on retirements.
Yep.
And,
I make a motion to approve the PMHS incoming new staff for the 25-26 school year for a STEM teacher, PE teacher, and building-based substitute.
Second.
any questions, concerns, any discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. The next part is coaches, no action is needed.
Right.
You wanna talk about that?
One piece of correspondence that came in late, we received it yesterday, is the invitation to the annual meeting, joint boards meeting for Governor Wentworth's Lakes Region Technology Center. Notice I'm saying meeting, not dinner. That is a change this year. So if anybody wants to attend on Monday, May 5th for a business meeting at Lakes Region Technology Center, let me know. I'd be happy to attend with you if somebody wants to go.
I already sent it. I sent it.
You're going?
Yeah.
Okay.
I sent it in to the. Good shame they did eliminate dinner. I mean, the students, no.
It was put on by the students,
Yeah, yeah, it highlighted their program, yeah, it is unfortunate.
All right, that brings us up to our next public input.
So I just wanted to point out a couple of excellent things that have happened at the school. I wanted to give props to Linda Sheff, Ms. Sauer, and Mr. Doobie on their execution of the SATs. The last 2 years, especially today, is probably the most flawless I've seen it happen. Years ago, IT had to be very heavily involved and do a lot of the proctor training. I didn't have to do anything this year, and it was smooth as butter. Another thing was 2 Saturdays ago, we had 2 students that attended the All-State Music Festival as part of the mixed choir, and I want to acknowledge them. They were Nina Hahn and my son Jude Dumont, and I also want to acknowledge their choral coach, Mr. Young. He did an excellent job in preparing for them, and the festival was quite a sight to see. It was beyond what I even expected that happened at the Capitol Center of the Arts. So just want to put that out there. Thank you.
Great.
Great.
Thank you. Any other public input? Seeing none. Future agenda items follow up. And then hope that we'll have the committee assignments in each one of our schools.
Any other?
Make sure you chair down.
Oh,
What else do we have on there? More, we're not meeting on building grounds till June, so we don't have that next month. You're gonna probably have an update.
I'll be in touch with the shared services group at some point in the next month.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll have an update more on in the, what the Senate does with,
Sure.
the budget for the state and might affect us. Hopefully an update on the grants, and then any of these lawsuits that are going on. Any of that stuff coming along. Okay, is there any other business to come before us? Seeing none. I haven't seen you for non-public. Do you need non-public?
Yes.
Make a motion to go into non-public under RSA 91-A:3, II, A, and C.
Okay, a roll call vote. Oh, a second.
Second.
Somebody's, okay, wait a second. Roll call.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.